where blacks has it worse in their health, as far as the health challenges that they deal with. And a lot of y'all know from last week when we had the presenters here talk about high blood pressure and talk about high cholesterol, and some of y'all had already witnessed some of the changes that you have gone through. But anyway, this is Dr. David. We want to welcome him to Zion Baptist Church, and I want to welcome y'all as well. So Dr. David is all yours.
Ajibade. What's the level? Yeah. Why people say Ajibade?
No, that's not it.
That's not it. So we'll give you time to settle down a little bit. And then how's everybody doing today? Doing okay?
Yes.
All right, I have a different accent. So I hope you can hear and understand me okay. How are we doing so far? All right. Sometimes my voice kind of trills or goes down a little bit. Just remind me, okay? You won't hurt my feelings. Anybody guess where I'm from? What? How? That was really fast.
Say the continent better.
Yeah. I think I was like 55. Very, very different. So, anyway, I'm from Nigeria, which happens to be the country. Is that where you're from?
Oh, no, but I'm not.
Ah, okay, cool. So, you all know that Nigeria has the most number of black people on the planet, right? It's a country that has the most number of black people, by far. No one even comes close. I think Brazil and then the US. So, Nigeria is by far has the highest number of black people on the planet. And so when we're talking about black people having memory issues and dementia, really, I'm really concerned about it for my country as well. In fact, more than anything else. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here. I visit. I usually come here like twice a year to study, to get training, and then go back. But during COVID, I kind of got stuck. And so we've been trying to. So I've been operating my foundation. It's called the Brain and Body Foundation, and where we research and we treat brain disorders. We first started with children, cerebral palsy, autism, seizure disorders. A lot of that going on, especially if you don't have access to good health care. Most African countries do not. So we have a lot of kids who have brain damage from basically. Maybe the doctor wasn't there when it was time to deliver the child, so the nurse didn't know what she was doing, or whatever. Something always happens wrong, and so we have a lot of those kids, and there's nothing to be done for them, except maybe physical therapy. And so we started a foundation to address that. But as we went on, we found out that there were a lot of adults, older people, having brain disorders as well. And so we had to expand from just addressing kids to addressing adults. And we found out that it's basically the same thing. If you don't have access to good health care, if you don't have knowledge about what to do to protect your brain and protect your body, you're going to get eventually, if you live long enough, you are going to have trouble with your brain. And we black people, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, we black people have certain things that make us more prone or susceptible to these brain conditions. And I feel we need to point these things out. But more importantly, we need to point out why. Everybody say why. We need to point out why this is so. Yes, in the US, there's a racial component, social injustice, and all those things. Absolutely, so it plays a big role. But it's not the only role. It's important that we understand that as well, so that we can start. And most of the time, what we found out is that dementia starts, the things that lead to dementia, and I'm going to define dementia so everybody knows what we're talking about. The things that lead to dementia usually start in your midlife, early 40s and above. So if we're going to address this, the African American community, we're going to have to start, not when you're 70 and 80, but like when you're living here, in your early 40s and above. That's what makes sense. And probably even in New York, when you're in college, really, you should start telling kids when they're in college, because there are specific things that we are more prone to having more than white people are. And I'm going to show you a few statistics. Well, this is one of the reasons I have this picture as well, because I volunteered with the Alzheimer's Association for about a year. And we were, I was, because of my work with the black community, WBAL TV in Baltimore, they did a whole segment on me. And these two young ladies, Erin Burnett is, I think she's a junior now in University of Maryland, she's on the left. And then the lady who interviewed me was, what's her name again? Brianna. Both of these two ladies, I think the older one is 25, the other one is like 19. They both had grandparents. They both lived, they saw the ravages of dementia. These are kids living with dementia. I said, no, they didn't have it, but they saw the effect of how devastating dementia could be on their parents and on themselves. They probably didn't get to enjoy time with their grandparents because of that. I'm 50, I'll be 52 this year. I don't have anybody in my family that has dementia. I don't know I don't have any experience of what that's gone through. And that's scary that people so young in this country are already experiencing it. And I'm sure, if I do a quick show of hands, how many of you know someone or live with someone who has dementia? So it's a big problem. It's a really big problem. And what is scary is that people aren't talking about it enough. And I'm shocked. I'm like, wait, why? What? You do know that Maryland has the most number of dementia patients in the US, right? It's a state, Maryland, the state of Maryland has the most number of dementia, people suffering from dementia in the country. We know that. Why do I think that is? A couple of factors. I'm not sure. Well, Maryland has what? Well, blacks have it twice as much, and we have a lot of blacks in Maryland. By the way, Baltimore is number one. It's the number one city in the country with dementia. Yes, ma'am.
What is the real early signs of dementia? Do you know somebody that you might think they have dementia, but you're not sure?
Yeah.
So what is like the early stage signs of it?
Good question. So some of the things that point us to, and this is an entire class I teach on, but I wanted to give you a few things. Slight memory losses, changes in mood or behavior, or just not being able to understand or grasp what you're saying quickly. Maybe you're all having a discussion, right? But you're all going back and forth. How do you say the breeze? Anyway, just throwing around, enjoying and all that, and then someone begins to fall further and further back in the discussion. Or you're about to give a presentation like I'm going to give, or you're about to address people, and all of a sudden you can't remember your daughter's name, or you can't remember your husband's name. It's like, for the life of me, I can't remember. So those are small signs. And here's a big one. If you're struggling with hearing loss can be a big. I must say everybody with hearing loss has a problem with dementia. Don't get me wrong, but it's one of the biggest risk factors to fall down with dementia. So it's really good to have your ears checked and to get a hearing aid. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I know this person who, no matter if I say, you told me already, they got to repeat what they said, like they forgot that they even told me. You know what I'm saying? Or if you say, you told me this, oh yeah, I already know about it, whatever, they gotta like still say it in their mind in order to get it off their mind or off their chest. They gotta say the whole thing over again. They might change one or two words of it, but it's still the same thing.
Well, older people tend to do that.
No, not older. It's 55 or something
Okay,
like that.
then that's a problem. That's definitely a problem. So you wanted to have them check it out.
So keep repeating yourself.
Yeah. If the person is repeating themselves all the time, or was asking the same question all the time and asking you to repeat yourself, that may be a problem. I'm glad you brought that up. But we have to move on. So please, if you have any questions too, if I can answer it right away, I will go ahead and answer it. If I think we should leave it till the end, because I know some people have to leave. So if I think we should leave it to the end, I'll politely say, can we leave it to the end? Is that okay?
One question I asked for exactly.
Yes.
Cancer or dementia?
Ma'am?
Cancer or dementia?
It can.
It can or cannot?
It can. Mainly through the treatment, because the treatments, the chemotherapy, the radiotherapy, and all those things can be very toxic on your brain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, my daughter, when she was going through chemo, they said that she would have chemo brain where she wouldn't remember at times. She's come through it, thank God, but she still had, some memory.
Yeah. Those drugs are extremely powerful. They can definitely shut things down. Luckily, a lot of people recover from it, but not everybody does. Alright, so this is just about me. Let me brag about myself a little bit. I'm sorry, just bear with me a little bit. I have a passion for education. I like to share education. If I find out something that is important to my family or my friends or anybody around me or to my patients, I make it a point to try and share it to as many people as possible. So I also had a TV show in Nigeria. We won the best show in Africa, the whole of Africa. That was a few years ago. And then for the work that we've been doing in the Black community. And I'm sorry, Carolyn, what's your name?
Carolyn, this is Jackie.
Jackie. I'm sorry, I'm going to be referring to blacks a lot, and I know you're maybe not black. But just bear with me. If you have any questions specifically in that line, you can address that as well. Alright, so I'm also operating in Nigeria, so I'm kind of like living in two lives at the same time. But a lot of what I'm doing now is basically to educate black people about dementia and what you need to do about this. And this is some of the statistics. I've already told you about Baltimore and Maryland. The numbers are growing rapidly in this country. 7 million now, people with dementia. Baltimore and Maryland have the largest size, and blacks 2 to 2.5 times. Right? It's the most expensive disease. About 40,000 to 60,000 is being spent each year. But here's the thing, number 5, it's 40% preventable. I think that's a low number. I think you can go as far as 80% preventable if you know what you're doing. Think about that. And yet all we're hearing is that there's a drug coming out, the drug's coming out, we've got this super drug that's going to treat dementia. A few years later we find out that drug didn't work, and so we're going to start all over again, find another drug, and it's all over the news, we found another drug, and yet the story repeats itself. 99% of drugs that have been produced for dementia have been abject failures. So my question is, wait a minute, which one is the 1% that has been a success? Right? It hasn't been a success. So back in Nigeria, I'm licensed in Nigeria, so I don't practice here, but we went to the government. When we started learning how to treat dementia using safe and effective means, we went to the government and we got permission. I said, we showed them what we're doing, we showed them the results we're getting, and so they gave us permission to use our approach to treat dementia. We don't use medications at all. Everything we use are what are known as supplements or nutraceuticals. These are like supplements on steroids, right? They're like high-powered supplements. So we use that and we treat, and we have patients around the world that we treat. So a lot of what I do is telemedicine. I'm online, and so I have patients from Nigeria. Well, my whole point is, why aren't we taking this serious? Why aren't the people like the Alzheimer's Association, the Baltimore Health, the state health departments, if we are number 1, if Maryland is number 1 in the country, why is it okay that we just continue as we usually do? Why are we just talking about, oh yeah, just exercise, make sure you take your medication, be happy, have little stress, all this generic information that we all know you're supposed to lose weight, we all know you're supposed to exercise. Don't we know that? We all know you're supposed to eat fruits and vegetables. Who doesn't know that? That is not
specific enough. The way we help people is by telling them specific things that they can use in their context, within their home settings, and that are specific to their personality, that are specific to their race and their lifestyle. Like what we're talking about with black people. If this were a room full of white people, it would be a different discussion. Even though it's about dementia, it would be a different discussion because lifestyles and your lived experiences are very different. You see what I'm saying? And sometimes we step on toes. Sometimes because when you hit too close to home, some people react, and I people really be upset about me because I said specific things. But the truth has to be told. Do we all agree? Yes. So I'm going to ask for forgiveness in advance. If I use the money told, please forgive me in advance because I really, as you can tell, this matters to me a lot. I'm passionate about it, and I feel that what we're learning here, we can help in African countries and third world countries where they don't have access to healthcare the way you all have access to. You guys are so fortunate compared to other Africans, right? I live in Africa. So we want to take the lessons that we can learn here and apply it back home. All right, so this is what dementia looks like. It's not something that's in your head. Well, it is in your head. But basically, by the time a person has dementia and is full blown, they have lost over a third, over 30% of their brain mass. That is a lot of brain tissue. A lot. Yes, ma'am.
What's the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia?
Great question. We'll get to that. Was that your question too?
Yeah, that was my question, and also how would Alzheimer's brain look in the same state?
How would Alzheimer's?
Like a brain, if you're showing like a cross section of a normal brain, I don't know my glasses. Is that a normal brain on one side?
Yeah.
A brain
And that's an Alzheimer's brain on the other side.
Oh, okay.
So let's go to the next one. So you have normal, and you can see the size difference. Can you see the size difference?
Yes, yes.
Okay, you want to take a picture? Okay, got it. So that you've lost over 30% of your brain mass. So what's the difference? Dementia is like an umbrella term. It's like anything to do with memory loss, anything to do with mood problems, speech issues, the whole shebang. And they're like close to 100 different kinds of dementias. Alzheimer's disease is one of those 100. However, it's the most common one of those dementias. And it is identified by what are known as amyloid plaques. Anybody familiar with that? Amyloid plaques are like proteins that show up in the brain. I mean, when you cut a death, they can cut it up and they will see these amyloid plaques. They are proteins, they are whitish proteins that show up and they are all over the brain. They are what we think shut down the brain and stop nerves and brain cells from communicating with each other. Does that make sense? For the brain to work like it should, it has to have brain cells frequently communicating with each other. If that communication is shut down by the amyloid plaques or by something else, your brain will begin to shut down. All right, so it's very important. Yes, ma'am.
So, I'm hearing you say the word plaques a lot. Are you talking about when they show you like the brain and say there's actually plaque on your brain? Because like I didn't see that in the diagram.
You didn't see that?
I didn't notice that in the diagram before this. They say as you get age, you get more plaque. Is that, I know that's part of this normal, but is the amount of plaque there is?
Yeah. So with amyloid, with Alzheimer's disease, you have a lot more plaques. As you age, most people have some kind of deterioration and plaques form, but they are nothing like what you see in Alzheimer's disease. So it's a degree. There are many more plaques in the Alzheimer's disease brain. Okay. All right. So are we clear with what's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's? And most people say everything is Alzheimer's disease, so that's not entirely correct. But Alzheimer's disease is one of the commonest forms of dementia. All right. But it's not just about memory loss. Many people think, I'm losing my memory, so it's Alzheimer's disease. But for something to be dementia, they have to fulfill about 2 or 3 things. obviously memory loss, but it also has to do with, like I mentioned, you're not following the conversation, you're not grasping what they're saying. Your ability to process what people are saying is slower and slower and slower. Now that happens with old age, but it's when it happens to such a degree that it affects your independent living and your daily life and you need help. That's why we know that there's a problem. Dementia is also occurs when, like I said, you can't understand or you just blank out. You're probably in your neighborhood and you're going for a walk, you've done that walk like 50,000 times, and all of a sudden, boom, where am I? Who am I? Right? That's really scary, isn't it?
It is.
This happens to some people too. And maybe that just happens once. It's a glitch. Right? So, and then of course, the third one is mood. Sometimes there's a mood change. You're not able to, normally you're a nice, mild-mannered person. You're very organized. All of a sudden, you're flying off the handle. All of a sudden, your room, your living room is a complete mess. Total disarray. All right? If that's unusual for you, then we have to worry about it. Okay? So we're talking about a lot of things. We're talking about threes. And this is a good way, I hope you can remember this. And we probably will make the slides available maybe sometime. Okay. So we're going to talk about 5 sets of threes. The 3 most, other than blacks, who do you think are the most at risk? Spanish people? Okay. Yeah. Who else? Who else? Huh? What? Me? Somebody doesn't like me. I knew it the minute you walked in. All right. What? Men. I'm talking about in general. So there are 3 groups. There are 3 groups that have at least twice the rate of dementia as the rest of the population, and I'll show that in a minute. I want to talk about 3 main reasons why people develop dementia, 3 reasons why blacks are at the highest risk, and then I'm going to tell you some call to action, some of the things that you can start doing beginning today. Everybody say today. Today. Right now. To begin to reduce your risk of dementia. And I promise you, these are simple things. But what I've seen is that many people it never occurred to them. Never occurred to them. Yes, ma'am.
Seems to me, I could be wrong, that people that get dementia also are the ones that retire.
Now we talk.
They're not still using their brains, that they're not doing things, like a lot of people that work longer and they're still using their brain, they don't get people that retire at 60, you get 70, and you can't, you're not utilizing your brain. Go home to sleep.
Some keep themselves active.
That's the key right there.
But a lot of people don't that retire.
That's the key right there. Activity. Keep your brain, your mind, and your body active. You are able to ward things off, doesn't matter where you are. But having to go to work on a regular basis does help. But yes, activity is the number 1 thing. Good point. All right, let's move on. All right. All right, so here's the answer to the question. The 3 groups that have twice the risk of dementia, are military veterans, women, and blacks. So 2/3 of all dementia patients are women, 2/3, 1/3 of blacks are men. Doesn't matter what race you are. 2/3 are women, 1/3 are men. Maybe when
can come and talk to you about that. And I know there's a room full of women who can talk to you about why that is so. And I got to come up with backup. I mean, I'm going to get in trouble if I come to talk about it. So Linda, you and I will have to talk too. Bodyguards. I need a battery of bodyguards. All right, so I used to have Queen Latifah before then. I gave a speech at the Baltimore City Health Department, and I had Queen Latifah where the black lady is, and they were upset with me. Why would I put Queen Latifah there? So I got a picture of someone that no one can ever recognize ever. So does anybody know who that is? I don't know either. So here they are. Blacks have twice the risk. Women have twice the risk. Military veterans have twice the risk. No time to go into those. We're talking about blacks. Obviously, some of the reasons that we gave are obvious, and I mentioned this before. You cannot neglect that. Some people have lived through racial injustice. I didn't. So it would be presumptive of me to talk about it. I don't have that lived experience. But from an intellectual perspective, and from what I've read of history and what my friends have told me, it has been very bad. Worse in some cases than others. And that's, in some generations, it just passes on and on. And that's in people's subconscious, it's in their psyches. There's a much higher rate of stress because of that, and on and on and on. And my heart goes out to people who have to experience that. I'm not going to say I understand, because nobody can say they understand unless they've gone through it. So that is a major factor. We also know socioeconomic reasons. I mean, if you grew up in poverty, it meant, amongst other things, you were not able to eat good food, you were not able to have a good diet, and so on and so forth. Access in the hospitals is still a big thing. I mean, Baltimore, there's still complaints. A black person goes to the hospital, and the white person does not treat him in the same way that they treat a white person. That is a failure of the system. Complete failure. I can't understand that.
You also provide religion too. No vaccine with the same type of medication is quite good. We talked about that last week. Yes. You have to know where it's done. So you have to know what you actually need, and that's why education classes are great. So we talked about that too.
Absolutely. But let me just push back on that a little bit too. Many times we need different drugs work differently for us. Like there's hypertensive medications. Some anti-hypertensive medications that are good for whites are bad for blacks. So, yes, ma'am.
Share with you guys. I was here last week on blood pressure taken. 6 months ago, they had changed my medication to generic. And from that time on, the medication had stopped working. So my walking blood pressure was 189, like 95. So this week I'm home on basically bed rest. They changed the medication and got it adapted, but praise God for these classes, because I don't know about you guys, but I don't stop in the morning to take my blood pressure. I knew I had been feeling funny, but it was the change that they made, and that would have been the difference between me dying and living, because I just had no clue.
Yeah.
So,
When they change your medications, aren't you supposed to go back to the doctor like 30 days later to check up on you to make sure the medication is working effectively? And a lot of times you put on generic because of your insurance. It depends on what your insurance will take and what they won't take. Sometimes to save us money as black people. Sometimes it's to save us financially.
Not all the time, though, Lisa, because like when you were here in class last week, and I was stating, you could ask, and I'm sorry, you could ask 5 people in your family that's taking high blood pressure pills. We talked about that when the doctor was here last week. And every last one of them, you talked to 5 of your friends, were on the same kind of medication. And they had the booklets for some of the side effects and the low dose and the stuff that's happened. And then the one medication for high blood pressure, if you have diabetes, you should be taking it. So the one lady that's in the class tonight, I'm not going to mention who it is, asked, why did the doctor give me this medication knowing that I'm a diabetic? So that's why I say you have to be an advocate for yourself. If you take diabetes medicine, or you're pre-diabetes, or anything like that, ask 5 of your members in your family, and I bet you the first #1 drug they got you on is metformin. And there are
I totally agree with you, but I think we have to hold ourselves accountable. We have to read the side effects, and we have to know. Like, if I can use a medicine, I'm going to make sure I'm.
I mean, I don't think the doctor should
Yeah, I mean.
shouldn't be doing that, so you have to be an advocate.
Yes.
And like she's saying, that like, the nurse said, well, she didn't know that she was taking the medication, walking around, thinking that the medication was working, and it wasn't even working. Until she came and got the information, and then she found out, oh, okay, I need to get this checked. And find out it was 189 over what, 89 or whatever it was, and that was high. She could have had a stroke and died. So what I'm saying is some doctors, especially, I work in America, so I know, when you go to America, you got to fall out on the floor sometimes and let them know you need help. Because when an African-American person goes in there, you're not going to get the same type of care.
No, I agree with that. I can't stand it.
Right.
No, not right now. I thought you was worried about her. I'll let her know.
When I was growing up, the men in the family,
There's a question over here.
when I was growing up, the men in the family, they didn't go for checkups like I do.
Right.
You know, so the men, when they got sick, they were almost done. Because that's the thing that's changing now.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we need to check up. Here's a quick question. Does everybody here, please, I want all hands to go up, but don't lie. Does everybody here have a blood pressure monitoring device? You got 2. Good. 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 All right. These things, folks, these things cost like $35 to $50. Please invest in it. I mean, even I did. I mean, I was so sure of myself. I went to church one day. I was traveling around the country, and I was in Houston. Went to church there, and they checked my blood pressure. It was high. I was like, what the heck? I mean, I'm supposed to be a healthy guy. I'm supposed to be teaching about this. What if I drop dead because of a stroke or something? I mean, that would have been an indictment on everything I do. So, if you're over 40, just know this. Your body isn't working the way it works when you're in your 20s.
Amen.
It is not the same body, folks. It is not the same body.
Slow it down.
Some of us find out the hard way. Alright, please, I'm going to say that at the end again, but please do that. You got to do that. Alright, it makes no sense when you know how to have a blood pressure monitoring device. Alright, okay, so let's move on. Social isolation. Of course, diabetes and hypertension big among blacks. Alright. So these are the 3 reasons. Everybody say 3 reasons. 3 reasons. Everything that comes to dementia is either 1 or 2 or all 3. 1, over the course of your life, if somebody comes down with dementia, whether they're in their 40s or 60s or whatever it is because their brains have sustained greater attacks, maybe higher frequency, higher severity, for a longer period of time. Maybe they were having some toxin, or they were, whatever. The brains over a period of time, and we're talking about decades now. That's eventually the brain succumbs and had dementia. Number 2, they have fewer protections. And I'm going to talk about some of the things that you can take, or some of the things that we have in our arsenal or at our disposal. Many of which you don't have to spend a single, you don't have to spend anything on, but they are helpful to protect your brain. And number 3, when things begin to go wrong, when things begin to act up, maybe like memory lapses, or balance problems, some of these things I mentioned, not able to process information as quickly, or you don't recognize someone,
begin to go wrong, we black people tend to be the least likely to go to the doctor to receive medical attention. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, I'm not going to discuss all the reasons why that is so you know some of the reasons for that. But even in Nigeria, we are not really good about going to seek for help. And it has nothing to do with the racial injustice. Because we're all black, right? There's no racial segregation there, maybe religious. But it seems like we're not, especially we men, we're not as willing to go and check up with the doctor when there's a problem. So these are things that need to be addressed. Also, I mean, and this goes for white and blacks as well, even when you do go to the hospital, most doctors are not trained to look out for these signs and address them. So for instance, diabetes. Diabetes increases your risk of dementia by many times, a large percentage. Doctors should be checking your brain function when they're checking you. So it's not just a blood test, they need to check your brain function as well. Hearing loss, I mentioned this before. If you're having trouble hearing, a doctor should quickly recognize that as an emergency and make sure he refers you to the audiologist or someone can help you get a hearing aid or something that will help improve your hearing. Those are things that will nip this thing in the bud. But because we don't know as lay people, and we don't know as doctors, these things just begin to fester. And they get worse and worse and worse and worse until finally there's full-blown dementia and there's nothing anybody can do about it. So we need to be more, the bottom line here is that we need to be more intelligent about, not just about health in general, but about our brain health in particular. Can somebody say amen? Amen. Good. Good. All right. Let's move on. Okay. Here's what we now know. I keep saying this. This dementia just doesn't jump on you. And this is what I hate about the messaging that is out there. They make it seem like there's nothing you can do. This dementia just happens to anybody. We don't know who's going to. It's like a sniper, right? The sniper is like whomever. And you never know who's going to hit next. And that is not true. For most of my patients, I can see the trail. When you talk to them, you see what they did wrong or what they didn't do that they should have done. And you can see what has happened over the years that led to this point. There's the breadcrumbs, there's a trail of breadcrumbs, there's the yellow brick road to the Wizard of Oz. There's a yellow brick road that led you to this point. It just doesn't happen. I promise you, it just doesn't happen. So we've got to know what are the things that lead to it. And the key there is cell damage. So this is the best definition I've got. Alzheimer's disease is a degenerative brain disease that is caused by complex brain changes following cell damage. I highlighted in red because that's the key. If we know what is causing the damage, and we know how it's causing the damage, then we will be more apt to take the necessary steps to either reduce the damage or improve our body's ability or our brain's ability to heal or recover from the damage. Those are the steps there, but it starts with cellular damage. I have a talk called Dementia's Dirty Dozen. Maybe one of these days I might come back and do that. But there are 12 pathways. Everybody say 12. 12 risk factors. And they all start with the letter I, so I can't make it fun. But everything from injury, like brain injury, footballers, for instance, to illnesses like diabetes, to gut problems. Drugs. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you, sir. So illnesses, and then the drugs used to treat the illnesses. A whole bunch of stuff. So we can go over them one by one. But we're not going to do that today because we're talking specific about what. All we're doing today is really showing you what you can do to be a part. to be, because remember what we said, we are 2 times more likely to have dementia twice. Our goal is to make it level the playing field, so it's one to one. And then we can talk about how, Linda, I was telling them about the Alzheimer's Association. I'm like, we are at, because I volunteered there, I said, we're at a disadvantage. It's like, we're like in a 100-meter dash, and they put us like 10 meters behind the starting block. So we have to make up for lost ground. And they made a joke and all that. I'm not going to repeat it, but it's like nobody's taking it seriously. I'm like, what are we doing? Okay. So there's 7 reasons that we have found out why blacks have it worse. Anybody heard of the balm of Gilead? Balm of Gilead? So I use that as an acronym here. So it's Gilead. So Gilead. Alright? Number 1 obviously is our genes. I will probably discuss that a little bit. We don't have much time to discuss everything, so I'm going to pick a few things and really drive them home. Alright, so there are lifestyle factors, there are environmental factors. A good example in Baltimore, I heard this when I did a speech for the Alzheimer's Association, and location, where some people live, next to toxic dumps or next to steel factories, where they're inhaling all these fumes, and it's the black people there that are mostly affected by these things. And they just, what's it called? What is there a name, term given to that? Where they just put the low income and black folks in the most undesirable parts of town?
Genocide.
Genocide. Gentrification.
Yes.
Is that what it is? Okay. And explain that. What is that?
That's when they,
Oh, so when the white people leave the neighborhood?
Like when you have an all-black neighborhood and you have Caucasians, Asians, represented, they change the dynamic of the neighborhood, and it's like it's as though black people never existed there. So what's going on in DC? DC was all black and it's gentrified, and they try to make it seem like blacks are never there. This, that, all the things that were important that are put people who were there, all the history, all the things that were there. Everything that was done there and found it's all just being washed away. It's not continuously being recorded, it's not being taught. You're not knowing how many doctors, lawyers, and everything came out of certain areas and how the black areas were very prominent and very prosperous. All of that is being just washed away.
It's the way to force our people out of the community and then erase any signs that we were even here, such as the Ebenezer Church up here and Harmon Hotel, things of that sort.
Or they, one other part of that, or once the black people move in, things get rezoned so that no businesses or anything can do anything in that area, so it becomes so impoverished that it becomes zoned.
Yeah.
Like this community is called red zone. No businesses can come in. It's zoned.
Right.
So they actually ban businesses from coming in.
They have it zoned. They do
Well,
it through
it's
zoning.
zoning.
They do it through zoning.
Yeah, they changed the zoning so that this is pretty much zoned as a residential area. So businesses, anything that could stimulate a vibrant economy here in the city for the people that are here and give them easier access to employment and things like that, without them having to spend all their money going elsewhere for employment. And you starve a community that way too, because obviously you can't have a grocery store in here if you can't put a business in here. So if you got even a grocery store that wanted to come.
That's where food deserts come.
Yeah, in your food desert.
So there's a lot of issues issues going on. So that's why I'm appealing to individuals now. I want to appeal to you all. Because those are issues that really just become the whole political mess sometimes when everybody's fighting for their own. And that's unfortunate. But the key is why I want to try to use the radio, the TV, any access we have to reach Black people. And if you have any suggestions, I would really appreciate you let me know. Where we can talk about these things and then bring them up so people can hear about them and make those necessary changes in their lives. Because it really starts with the individual. It's what you can do at your individual level. You have your own brain, and your brain is yours. Whatever happens to it, it's really up to you. So I really want to appeal to that part and take responsibility for that. The rest of that, obviously, is very unfortunate. Yes, ma'am?
So do you have a social media page or
I do.
presence?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say that would be a really good way. This is all new to me.
Right.
On social media all the time. I think
well, this information, okay. Alright, so we'll find a way to get it over to you so you can, I mean, we post every day. I have my staff at Nigeria post every single day. Alright, so common visions. So, like I said, I want to just focus on a few. These are super important. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. Who's taking over? Are you helping out? Are you seeing me now?
I see you.
Fully? Okay. Don't cut me out. You know I'm short, right? So you guys. Okay, cool. Thank you for doing that, man. I appreciate it. All right. So, like I said, these are the three things that tend to stand out the most. We're more prone to hypertension. We're more prone to blood sugar problems. And we have the lowest vitamin D levels of anybody. Does anybody know why vitamin D is important? Does anybody know why vitamin D is important?
Vitamin D is important. Vitamin D is very good. People start seeing because the vitamin D grow in our bodies. And a lot of times people have a lot of health issues. They have a deficiency in vitamin D. So vitamin D, they might need to supplement or they get outside and get the vitamin D. But it helps with not only health benefits that we go through or health problems that we have. So vitamin D is very important. And a lot of times people, especially in the African American community, don't get tested for vitamin D. And when they do, then they can find out whether they know or if they need to take a supplement that the doctor might recommend, or they can get it over the counter. But every dark-skinned person anyway should be on vitamin D3.
Well said. Keep it on. Please. You been taking classes?
No, I said I'm taking classes on a lot of different things, so yes, I'm there. Background and so yes. So I know
She's our community queen of health.
What?
She's our community queen of health.
The community queen of health. Well, she's doing a good job being the queen of health. Really good job. Okay. So I guess during COVID, that vitamin D thing became kind of prominent. Well, we just thought about it in regards to COVID, right? We just thought about it as something to prevent. Can we shut that door?
Yeah.
We just thought about it as something that was just for infection. Well, I'm here to tell you that again, it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy that we're not talking about this like we should. Because vitamin D is probably, arguably, the most important nutrient for your brain. And black people, by definition, are deficient in vitamin D. We have the lowest levels of vitamin D of any race. Why is that so? Does anybody know why that is so? Come on. Somebody's gonna tell me.
A lot of
Not
folks
you,
are-
Linda.
We don't like to be in the sun.
with melanin.
Is that true though? Is it true that black people don't like to be in the sun?
I do.
You don't?
I like to be in
Like
the
being in
sun.
the sun.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Anybody else? Who likes being in the sun? Do you like being in the sun?
I do too.
You like being in the sun?
Not as a student,
When you were a student, you were like being in the sun.
but I do.
Alright, so let me be frank with you.
But I think a lot of folks have been, society has made folks maybe want to stay away from getting darker.
Yes, so you know what?
So in European folks, they
want to get, European folks want to
they
get
stay
darker.
out there and sometimes to the excess.
They want to get darker. We want to get lighter. Is that,
Right.
is that what you're saying?
And if you stay out and get dark, then you try to stay away.
True. But
You
who's
have been burned, and that is not fun.
true? But who's more likely to get burnt? Black people or white people?
Europeans.
You do? You tell. Right. So you're kind of light skinned. So yeah. I mean, I used to, and I've had to ask for forgiveness. I used to make fun of black people. I'm like, why don't you like going out in the sun? Because this is in Nigeria too as well. We would have this. We have parks. I mean, some cities have parks. And you go to a recreational park, right? And like everybody's out there. They're playing soccer. They're doing all these things, and everybody's fully clad, dressed. Because if you know anything about Nigerians, if we have money, we like to show it. We flex, right? So we get all the Gucci, the Lululemons. I mean, anything you guys have, we wear everything, and we really look cool, right? And they're all, the sun is out, and they're all wearing the long pants, the long sleeve shirts, the hoodies, and all that, and nothing except their hands and their faces are exposed to the sun. And I saw this over and over again. So when I came here too, holy, these kids, I see with these kids, they're wearing their hoodies, the sun is out, and they're like. So, before I get on my soapbox, I want to say this now, just in case I forget to say it. We are coming out of the winter, which almost everybody will have low vitamin D levels for obvious reasons. You went out, you were not going out in the sun because of whatever reason. Most people's vitamin D levels are in the toilet. For black people, it's even worse. So you have very low levels. You're now coming out into the spring, so we're seeing the sun out more and more frequently. I beg you, wear your shorts, wear your tank tops. If that's indecent, wear your t-shirts and come out into the sun as much as you possibly can. Now I understand some of you get burnt more easily than others. Then you got to modulate it. When it gets too much, by this time you probably know what it takes, how long it takes to get burnt, and then you get back in and cover up. But you need to replenish your vitamin D stores. And it's not just vitamin D. There are other things that the sun provides. Think about this. The poorest countries in the world are the countries that still have sun, have the most sun. It's almost like God wanted to make sure that we had enough sunlight. That this vital thing is not going to be taken away from the poorest countries in the world. We have sun. Many of us tend to stay away from it, but there are other things. There's the infrared rays. There are things that help our blood vessels. There are things that help our brain. All of it is in the sun. So it's not just vitamin D I'm talking about. That's why vitamin D can get supplements. There are other parts of the sun that you cannot supplement. You have to be out in the sun. And you have to expose your skin to the sun. And the darker your skin is, the more you have to be in the sun. Because melanin is like a sunscreen. Melanin, this thing that makes us black, we have the most of it. It's like sunscreen. It blocks out our ability to make vitamin D. That's what I'm saying.
The darker your skin.
The darker your skin is, means that you have more melanin. And the more melanin you have,
the less likely you will be able to make vitamin D.
Dark person definitely doesn't need no sunscreen.
That's right.
Got to tell my wife.
That's right. All right. So the three things we want to talk about. Let's move on. We're now finding out. So I want to talk about vascular concerns because when it comes to blood people, we have the highest rates of hypertension and other problems in the cardiovascular system. We have strokes and so on and so forth. I was going to say something now. So hypertension and other atherosclerosis, stroke problems, kidney problems, these are all have to do with the vasculature. All right? And what we know is it starts at a much younger age for us. They're looking at they've done studies where they see the blacks in their late teens, early 20s already begin to have the changes. The cardiovascular changes in the blood vessels. Blood vessels are tighter, they're narrower than their peers in other races. Part of the reason for that is our low vitamin D levels. Yes, ma'am.
I also think, some of the reasons for that is we don't take care of ourselves.
Sure.
Talk about it. I mean, not being funny, we don't go to the gym, we don't work out consistently, and we don't eat properly. So this affects every aspect of everything you're just saying. Now, the blood pressure can be hereditary, but the sugar and diabetes, it can be, but it can be fixable too sometimes if we watch what we eat.
It's harder for us. So genetically, we're more prone to these things. So I agree with you. But I agree with you that we have to take responsibility and take these lifestyle factors into place. But also, genetically, and I'm saying this not for you to go back to God and say, why did you do this to us? Oh, woe is me. I'm saying this so you can know what your disadvantages are and do something about it. White people have their own problems too. I hope you understand that. Yeah, they have their issues that make them more prone, and so they have to make amends, so they have to make up for those lapses in their genes that make them more prone to certain things. So I'm just pointing these things out to you so you know. Remember I said teenagers. I mean, teenagers are the most active. And in your young 20s, your body is supposed to be in the fittest and healthiest it's supposed to be. And it will ever be. Okay, yeah, true. We don't want to crap on here. But ideally, it's supposed to be. Ideally. So blood sugar concerns, again, our bodies, for different reasons, we don't handle sugar as well. But here's the problem. We love sugar.
Yes, we do.
We love sugar. We put more sugar in our coffee. We love the juices. We love the packaged juices and all that. And so that's another thing we need to point out to people. We need to start because why is this so? I can't go into this too much, but sugar, we're taking more sugar than ever before. One of the things sugar does when it gets to above a certain level is that it begins to damage. And there are many ways it damages the brain, but it damages the most sensitive parts of the brain. And some of the most sensitive parts of the brain are the memory centers, the parts that have to do with memory, so it can cause damage to it. Alright? And of course, there's stress too. We mentioned stress before. Stress also damages the most sensitive parts of the brain, which are the memory centers as well. So we're having all these things happen to us, and we have no idea that these are things happening to us. We just, when we feel bad or we feel depressed, we go reach out for that chocolate, or the juices, or the fried foods. That's another thing, by the way. You gotta step out of the fried foods. Because the oils and those vegetable oils can be very dangerous to your brain if you take a lot of it. So anything when you're eating all these fried foods, another thing, I know you're looking at me like you're hearing this for the first time. Fried foods. We love our fried chicken. We love our fried chicken. That's another thing you want to start watching out for. You want to switch to broiled or baked. I mean, I can already see the interest. People are like, the eyes are glazing over. They're like, this guy doesn't know what he's he's talking about. What? All right, good. You want to start packing with, especially after 40, you want to start those, when you fry stuff, it changes its composition and becomes something different from what was in the bottle. It becomes toxic to your brain. Not just to your brain, obviously, to your blood vessels and so on and so forth. So, all right, let's talk more about vitamin D. These are a few of the things that we are the kings and the queens. We are number one when it comes to prostate cancer. We are number one when it comes to breast cancer. We're also number one when it comes to a few other things, like kidney disease and all those things. And so people are like, okay, why is that so? And everybody's talking about the racial reasons, the racial injustice. But this is somebody from FDA. We'll take time to read this out. In sharp contrast to their white counterparts, blacks have a much higher incidence and mortality of certain kinds of aggressive cancers. And I started my career in cancer treatment, so I saw this a lot. Aggressive cancers, autoimmune diseases, and diabetes that cannot, everybody say cannot. Cannot be attributed entirely to socioeconomic differences or disparities in healthcare. And obviously she was referring to racial issues as well. She said, this is an FDA, she said it cannot attribute it to all that. And again, we're seeing a rise in these things in Nigeria and other African countries as well. So we're seeing a huge rise in these things. It's not only that. We now are beginning to find out that there are certain things like vitamin D that we are lacking. There are other nutrients too that we tend to lack, probably because of our lifestyle, probably because of our diets, and we're not getting as much of that should protect our brains. We're just not getting enough. Another one is zinc. Another one is magnesium, potassium. Iron. We seem to be more deficient in iron. I've been studying this thing too. We seem to be more, have a greater iron deficiency. But I want to focus on vitamin D because of all the things that we can possibly think about. This is by far the most important. Okay, we know that vitamin D is involved in production of those chemicals, those neurotransmitters. Everybody knows what a neurotransmitter is, right? The chemicals that your brain itself can communicate. We know it's protective. So they did tests. And this is the last one there. The data showed that those people with lower vitamin D levels. Now, who do we say has the lowest vitamin D levels? Black people have the lowest vitamin D levels. If you don't do anything about it, you are by definition have lower vitamin D levels than somebody your own age, your own socioeconomic level, your own background, who is white. Have, on average, lower vitamin D levels, especially coming out of winter. And this is what they say. Those with lower vitamin D levels exhibited slower information processing speed. This correlation was particularly strong among men older than 60 years. Right? And it goes on and on. There's something that I found out recently, and I've been talking about vitamin D for years. And back home I was screaming about, guys, take vitamin D. All my patients, I put them on vitamin D. I don't care what you have. Over here, obviously, I have to say, go do a test and make sure your tests are accurate and all that. But I'm telling you, usually it comes back and it's low. So back home, I don't bother. Just go take a vitamin D and don't come back to me again until you got your vitamin D. But one of the things that we found out is that, so the brain, like I said, is made up of all these connections, right? Your brain changes every second. Since you've come in here, your brain has changed a lot because of the information that you're getting. Your brain is constantly making new connections here, it's remembering things, it's connecting what I'm saying with maybe what you've heard before, it's analyzing, so your brain is constantly changing. But the changes, these connections it's like scaffolding, when you're building a building, you got to have the scaffolding to know how to align. You know what I'm talking about, like that outside thing to like be sure that the bricks and the things are laid in the right way. The scaffolding to make sure that it holds it in place. That is what vitamin D does for the brain. It helps to keep things organized and in place. And yet I was told to stop talking about vitamin D. You know I told you that right there.
Why? Because they don't want us to know.
I don't think it's a racial thing because
Big pharma.
people are always talking about things like liability. Like it could be a legal liability. You start talking to people about certain things, and it's like they might come back and say, "Oh, it's your fault. I got sick because I did this, and it's your fault. I'm suing you." This country loves legal issues. This is litigious. What do you call it? Litigious society. Love suing everybody. So maybe that's really why they don't want to do it. But I'm like, dude, these people need to know. I mean, this is the easiest thing you can do. A bottle of vitamin D, you get it from Amazon or Sam's Club. You can get 6 months supply for less than $10. And that could mean the difference between dementia and not having dementia.
No, I just wanted to say, people, a lot of times, the nurses just tell me that, they say, most of the doctors don't check unless you ask. So, you should, when you go in and get your physical, people should be getting their urine physical, or to see the doctor, they should always ask for the vitamin D3 check.
Yes.
That is check.
Yes.
And that's something you should always be doing. Because if you don't ask, that's why some you have to learn to advocate for yourself. Because if you don't say anything, they're not going to check you. And that's what your nurses is showing you, people should be showing you their lab work. And not only that, especially in African Americans who we high across with diabetes as well, is to get your A1C up as checked as well. So
Stand up, Linda.
you should be saying something to your doctor. Or if you got a great doctor, the doctor will actually tell you that these are things that you should be getting checked anyway. But if they don't say nothing, you don't say nothing, you just slip on through the cracks. And that's the reason why it's an epidemic in the African American community for people that have diabetes, high blood pressure, across the board for everything. And vitamin D3, like you say, you pick up a supplement over the counter, get yourself a good vitamin, it's not going to hurt you, and that's great. Or you go to your doctor, you can ask them to check it and find out if you have any deficiency, especially if you're dealing with multiple health challenges. Not only with high blood pressure, everything else, asthma, anything like that, you should always ask. Always ask. And what she did, she was just sharing with her test results. And I said, no, they're not gonna check it, you should ask them.
So, if you're taking like a multivitamin, will that cover like all of this?
Not vitamin D.
So you need to get a supplement just.
Yeah, absolutely vitamin D. Now, some people, I always want to say this too. So the main fear that most doctors have with vitamin D, and I don't think it's, the fear, in my opinion, the fear is exaggerated. What vitamin D does, it helps you absorb calcium from your food. So it could raise your blood calcium to certain levels. But at the dose that I recommend, I don't see it happening. But as a safety guard, I tell people you can get a vitamin D supplement that has vitamin K2. So what K2 does is that K2 takes the calcium out of the blood and drives it into your bones. So vitamin D can increase, in some people, it can increase your calcium levels. And trust me, it's not that dangerous at all. I have kids that I can give, I treat sickle cell disease a lot in Nigeria. We give them the same dose we give adults. We've been doing this for years, of vitamin D. So it's very safe. But for those who are concerned, you want to take, there's also the vitamin D that comes with vitamin K2, the combination of the two. So vitamin D raises your calcium levels, maybe, but vitamin K2 brings it down because it takes the calcium out of the blood and drives it into the bones. Many people who have osteoporosis, they're low in vitamin D and they're low in vitamin K2, I guarantee you. Amongst other things.
I've been doing vitamin D and my doctor told me to stop taking because my level is too high.
Did you ask him what the level
Well,
was?
I'm going to now.
If it's not over 100, it's not over 100, you are good. Because the range is 30 to 100.
32.
Yes. So most people coming out of winter, if you're coming out of winter, most people are in their 30s because they've used up all their vitamin D stores during the winter times. So they're in their 30s. We're finding out that even like people who are going through menopause or people who have sleep problems, vitamin D helps with your sleep. And then some doctors say that it's only when the vitamin D levels reach 70 that they're able to get these people to have normal sleep. So whatever anybody says, if somebody takes your vitamin D levels and it's 30 and they say you're fine, they don't know what they're talking about. That's because they've just not been taught properly. I would strongly encourage you to keep going until you're about 70. And last time I checked, mine was 83. I have 17 left to go. I'll still push it. There are some doctors who don't accept anything less than 100. They won't want 100 or 150. Now most doctors will scream at that. But hey, if you look at what happens to you if you don't have enough vitamin D, and you compare that with what happens to you if you have enough vitamin D, the downside is so much worse. So much worse if your vitamin D levels are low. Because it's exposing you to so many different things. Everything from brain fog to kidney problems. I'm not saying vitamin D is going to solve all your problems, don't get me wrong. But doesn't it seem like it's an easy thing to handle? Come on.
So how many milligrams?
What was that? 100 to 1. And most of them will come like that.
And how many milligrams are you taking, or
So
whatever?
so like I said, I'm not a doctor here, so I can tell you what I do with my patients. This is not medical advice.
Okay.
You get it? So I recommend 10,000 international units for my patients.
10,000.
It's international units, so 10,000 international units. So the vitamin K2 would be 100. 100. So the vitamin K2 will be 100 mcg. So I recommend 10,000 vitamin D, and then so it's 100 to 1. So the K2 will be about 100. Yeah, 100 times 100 is 10,000. Got it? All right. So let's move on. Yes.
What about omega-3? They say they push out the omega-3 for brain.
Yes.
Is that good also?
Absolutely. The challenge I have with omega-3 is that everybody needs omega-3s. You don't get me wrong, very important. But the challenge is that many don't make, it's expensive to make good quality omega-3 supplements. So the brand is important. The one I recommend is not less than $60 a bottle. Yeah. So to get it right, you've got to spend the money. Most people simply aren't able to spend the money every month. So I look at the other things. There's one I use, and the way I discovered omega-3s, we had somebody over here who was donating to us. We started using it on kids with severe brain damage. I'm talking about severe brain damage at birth, cerebral palsy. They couldn't move their necks at 1 year of age. They could not, much less crawl. They couldn't move their neck. And we started giving them large doses of omega-3s, and miracles happened. They started walking, they started crawling, they started walking, just in omega-3. But we were giving them massive doses. I mean, each bottle was like $100. We were giving them like 3 bottles per month because we had donations. So omega-3s absolutely work. If you can afford it, I can tell you which ones to get, but most people can't afford it. That's the challenge. So I look more at vitamin D and these other things that are cheaper and more available. But like I said, there are other things too, like vitamin, potassium, magnesium, and zinc. And there are other nutrients too that are extremely important about what we're trying to do. And I'm formulating, because I formulate nutrients as well. So I want put in all these different things we're talking about. They're like 15 to 20 things that are important for the brain. We want to put it all together in one supplement, like a powder thing. Maybe it's like a sweetener. We make it a sweetener so you can just put it in your water and you can drink it. So that the value of this thing would be like $300. We're trying to bring it down to just like $50 a month. That will provide most minus omega-3s, most of the things that you as a blind person will need. So we'll keep you in touch. I'm looking for an investor who can. We know where to do it. We've got everything in place. We just need somebody or people who can help fund this. We'll get it done. So, like I said, vitamin D. A lot of people are deficient in vitamin D. How do you know who is deficient? Well, we mentioned black. If you're over 40, if you're overweight, if you have any chronic disease, because vitamin D is what the body uses to fight chronic disease, diabetes, and all that. So there's a whole bunch. If you're not eating well, you're eating fried foods, you're depleting your total vitamin D. So quite a few things. This is a picture that kind of like tells you the darker your skin is, the longer you have to be out in the sun. So a white, pale lady can be out in the sun for like 15 to 20 minutes. If you are really dark, you might have to spend 10 times that long to get the same amount of vitamin D that a white, pale person had to spend. I mean, it's like night and day. Okay? Yeah, it doesn't say it here, but you would have to spend 10 times as long in the sun to get vitamin D. So that's why I said this.
Back to the previous slide. Yes.
So that's why I say don't kill yourself. We all know you're not going to be out in the sun every day.
Right.
We all know you're not going to do that. All right. I want to leave you with this picture because this is like a real nice graphic that just kind of explains the whole thing I've been talking about. The two mice at the top are twins from the same litter. They are identical pups, the same genes, whatever. One of them, they found a way to scientifically stop it from making vitamin D. Can you guess which one?
One on the left.
Exactly.
Yeah, that one. Yeah,
Exactly. That's after 8 months.
Oh,
Wow.
Can you see how sickly and weak?
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Good night.
Have a good night. There's so many things going on with that pump. There's so many things going on. Now, we don't see it in our bodies much, but I'm telling you, there's issues here and there that is causing us to break down more easily because we don't have enough vitamin D. So, as I mentioned, whites have their own issues too. Don't be so cozy if you're white. You can't be too smart. Everybody has problems. Alright, so let's recap. We've said this. I think this is probably the most important slide. The reasons people come down with dementia is because their brains, one, have greater attacks. It's more amongst black people. They have fewer protections or weaker defenses. And we've said that vitamin D helps to protect your brain. So vitamin D can explain that second one. Number 3, medical attention. I would like you to focus the most as black people on these 3 things. Please get a blood pressure monitoring device. You can't check your insulin levels or your blood sugar, so I'm going to skip this. So let's talk about 3 things you need to get. I strongly recommend, I mentioned the blood pressure measuring device. Number 2, you need a sleep mask. I'm not talking about sleep apnea. I'm talking about those masks they give you on the plane. Your brain to rest properly, you need to sleep in absolute, total darkness.
Oh, no telephone, no TV. I can't go to sleep on TV. The room needs to be dark.
The room needs to be dark. If the room can't be dark, then get a sleep mask. Because we all know, the TV is flashing, the cell phone is flashing, even when you turn the lights off. If you don't have, if your blinds aren't thick enough, the light is going to creep in.
Yeah.
All those things. I mean, like I said, this is just simple things.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, these are deep things. If your brain isn't getting it, it's only when there's complete darkness that your brain secretes the chemicals that it needs to heal and repair itself. I mean, it's still going to make it, but it's not going to make it enough. And if you're being interrupted every time in the night, so you need to ensure that in your little world, you give your brain darkness.
Okay.
This is one of the things that trip us up. This is one of the things that trip us up. Not sleeping, your sleep cannot be, you cannot say that you're getting good quality sleep. If your lights are on, or the TV is flashing, or you have a cell phone there, please don't sleep with the cell phone near your head. I beg you. Put your cell phone somewhere else.
Not near your head.
Not near your table, not near your reading table, put your cell phone across the room. Okay? Because we're dealing with these cell phones are getting more and more powerful, and they're emitting electromagnetic frequencies that are so powerful that it's going to mess with your brain's transmission, because your brain is electrical as well. It's going to mess with your brain. So keep your cell phones away. Again, these are simple things, but most of us are tripping them. And of course, you need a bottle of vitamin D. Are we all agreed on that?
Yes.
Okay. There's a sleep mask, just in case you have any doubts about what I'm talking about. I got a whole pack from Amazon for a pack of 50 for less than $15. Alright, so it's dirt cheap. Alright? What?
I said weird.
Yeah. Tell me that's not dirt cheap for your health. Please. There's another thing. Because of our sugar, again, like we've already said, we're wrapping up soon. How much? Wow, that's way over. Because our bodies, again, our black bodies don't handle sugar as well as the white people do, I would recommend that you start looking at what you're eating, start reducing your portions as much as possible. In Africa, we like starchy foods, yams, cassava and all that. We love it. We have the spicy soup and all that. I tell them, whatever you're taking when you're 25, cut it in half. Your body can't handle that much anymore, because that quickly turns to sugar. It may not be sweet, but it rapidly turns to sugar. Potatoes sugar. So you want to reduce that. But here's another thing I want you to do. You want to, especially in the afternoon, you've had your meal, rather than just going and sitting and plunking in front of the TV and watching your favorite TV show, I would strongly recommend, and this has been proven by science now, that you go up, get out into the sun, now that the sun is out, you take a walk, a 10 to 15 minute walk, before you go back to your city. Especially if it's a heavy meal. Same thing at night, or I mean, I understand there might be issues where you live and all that, but just make it a point to remember to go out, go for a walk. What happens, or what that does, is that it helps to drive down your blood sugar levels. Because as soon as you eat, your blood sugar levels go sky high, your insulin levels go sky high, and your body is trying to deal with all this stuff that you put in your body. But if you walk, it helps to drive, because your muscles now begin to take it. When you're activating your muscles, everybody say activating.
Activating.
So when you're activating your muscles suck in the sugar. So it brings your blood sugar levels down. The road to ill health is paved with sugar. And we take a lot of it. And yes, we can't handle it as well as white people do. So please, and one of the reasons why we can't handle it as well as white people is because our vitamin D levels are low. Vitamin D helps to regulate the blood sugars. Okay, so it all comes back to vitamin D, doesn't it? Alright, so we've said that eat less sugar, you want to take more fiber if you can. I know I can't take vegetables every day, I can't eat salad every day. So I go and I search for one that works for me. I have a fiber supplement, so I just pour it into a glass of water and just drink it. And I have my fiber requirements, maybe half of the requirements for the day, but at least I take it fiber. I make sure I take it fiber every day.
not the capsules, not the tablets, but the fiber. It's kind of like flakes. I used to get it from Whole Foods. You can get it from GNC. Okay, all right. So final. I hope we've been able to explain dementia, how it happens, but more importantly, why we as Black people have a higher risk of it, and why we need to take our own health into our own hands now that we have a little bit more understanding of what our risks are and why our risks are so. Alzheimer's is still the only one of the top 10 causes of death that cannot be prevented, treated, or slowed down. Or is it? I would beg to differ. We can do a lot about dementia, but not if you're listening to TV and CNN and everybody else that's just told the party line, so to speak, and say, oh, we're waiting for the new drug to come out, then you are on your own. So you want to use your brain to save your brain, right? Figure out what can be done, because a lot can be done, and we are putting it in our foundation and our clinic every single day. All right, thank you very much, and thank you very much.